Hey everyone, it's Law and welcome back to my channel. Today we are back in The Sims 4 and I am furnishing the 2A Jasmine Suites apartment, which you can find in the Spice District in San Myshuno. So this is the apartment which comes with the Bearder family, Aaron and Jesminda, and they are very well known for having a very bright and colourful and vibrant apartment. And I have to say, I didn't exactly imagine them living in this renovated version, but I did try to keep some of the colourful aspects with the furniture in this build. So the appliances which come with the build and the counters and the bathroom furniture and all that stuff that you typically get with an apartment is very basic and I would say very neutral. However, I did try to mix up the colour with the furnishings, so I went for a very bright coloured sofa in the living room, as well as some of the extra appliances around the kitchen. So you'll see soon I placed down a bright pink coffee maker. The bedrooms are quite colourful, and I don't know, I really like how it turned out. I don't generally build in this apartment. I kind of feel awful when I evict the Sims that are living in the apartment. It's that noise, you know, the dun dun dun. I don't like it. So it was a bit weird for me to come into this apartment and start furnishing it, but I do like how it turns out in the end. It's got a real family feel about it. It's quite messy. I feel like the Sims that live here don't really care that it's messy. I feel like they're the kind of Sims that would have pasted on their refrigerator. If you wanted a clean home, go and stay at a showroom or something, you know. So at the moment we are just in the kitchen and I'm working on this corner in the kitchen, just adding a lot of clutter. And if you've watched any of my previous speed builds, you will know that I adore making these really cluttered, realistic kitchens filled with all the stuff you'd usually find in a kitchen, especially when you're in the middle of preparing a meal. So I'm placing down some potatoes and I'm going to put down some vegetables on top of the chopping board there. If you'd like to know how I put that chopping board on the countertop, I use the tool mod by Twisted Mexi. So basically that is a object which automatically snaps to a wall, but you can use the Twisted Mexi's tool mod to rotate it and elevate it so that it looks like it's lying across the countertop. And I've done this before and I do this with a range of different objects. There is an awesome cutting board that came with Snowy Escapes. I have used the other side of the bread baking object when your sim is cooking eggs on toast. I've used that object, and I'm always looking for new ways to clutter my kitchens using the debug options, and I'm really happy with how this turned out. It just feels really cozy, and this is actually the first time that I'm using the country kitchen objects, and I just love that pack. I recently did a build which is a collaboration with my dear friend Gaucho Marks, who you can find on Instagram. We are working on a family farmhouse in Brindleton Bay, and I finally was able to use the counters that we got with that kit, and I am just in love with that kit. I feel like all of the objects that's in it I will definitely use in more or less all of my kitchens, because I do really enjoy building houses for families and I really enjoy realistic aspects of my gameplay, so look forward to more builds using those objects. So one thing about these apartments, which I do try to keep throughout most of my renovations of them, is usually the apartments will come with a plaque or pipes or drains or something which you can't delete. And I know there is a way using another mod from Twisted Mexi where you can delete those objects using the shift key, I believe. But I always try to utilize them in these builds. I always try to keep them in so that if you do want to download each of my apartments and play with them in the game, then you should be able to still use all of the gameplay features of the apartment. So you'll see, for example, in this apartment, right by the front door and by this living room, there is a electricity box which sometimes will break, and it will require your Sims to either call the landlord or to roll their sleeves up and risk electrocution to fix it. But I decided to keep that in this build. I just closed it off with a wall so you don't have to constantly look at it, because I do find that some of the objects which you can't delete in apartments are pretty ugly. For example, in one of the apartments there's that historical plaque on the wall, and that's very hard to hide because it's bang in the middle of the apartment. But where possible, I do try to leave these things in the build for you to keep the build functional. And one thing to note with this build, this was the first time I was using tool mod in build mode. That just gives you an idea of how long ago it was that I recorded this footage. But it took me a really long time to get to grips with it, and I kept making mistakes and I kept deleting objects. So this build took me a lot longer than it should have done, if I'm being 100% honest. And I do feel like since I built this, we have had a number of updates with the mod, so it's definitely a lot easier to use these days. But when this came out, it was brand new on the market, and I struggled. Like, I just did not have a Scooby-Doo what I was doing, but in the end I did sort of manage to figure it out. And can I just say, if you are playing on PC and your system can run mods, I would definitely recommend checking out the tool mod from Twisted Mexi. It has saved my life on more than one occasion, and it's just a way that you can create more possibilities for your building, and you don't even have to be a whiz at using it. You can literally use it for the bare minimum, like I do, just to, with more precision, place objects, and so you can create your own little scenes like I've done in the kitchen. So now we're in the bathroom, and it's a very simple bathroom. I used the same counters from the kitchen. I felt like that was a good way to keep everything neat and tidy, and it just made sense to me. I feel like in most apartment builds, you will probably find the same counters in the bathroom and in the kitchen, and I think that's probably just money saving or something, but I like how it turned out. It's kind of a color swatch that I don't use. I've never used that tile really, because I feel like the matching, or what's supposed to be the matching wall, doesn't really match that well. But I felt like in this build, especially with the grey tones from the doors and the furniture, it just came together really nicely, and I felt like it was kind of a stark opposite to how grey the rest of the house is, if that makes any kind of sense. So I'm happy with how that turned out. I am just currently in the living room again, and we're playing around with the dining area. This build does look very cramped, but I have play tested it and everything does work. So your Sims will be able to use the dining table, get to the coffee machine. They'll be able to use that empty counter to cook their meals. They can get to the sofa and the TV. So there's nothing to worry about in terms of routing with your Sims if you do decide to download this build and put it in your game. So I spoke a little bit earlier about the family who do actually live in this apartment in a default version of the game, and I've only played with them like a couple of times, And they're a really strange family because although Jesminda Bearder is pregnant when you first open your game, I've had like multiple different saves where she's had one baby, she's had two babies. So let me know in the comment section down below if you've played with this family or you have this family in your save file. How many children do they have? Because I feel like it's always going to be surprised whenever you play with them, which is kind of fun. I like that idea, but anyway, yeah, so I am working on this little entryway here. I really enjoyed using that plant or the vase that came with the Hispanic free update. I feel like it's really colourful and pretty and it kind of matched the style I was going for. The best thing about it is that you can size it down and size it up and it won't have awkward shadows. Some of the objects that you size down have these really awful dark shadows where the object used to be, and that's very annoying. There's a blind from the Snowy Escape pack, which I think I've spoken about in a previous video. I definitely spoke about it on stream with the Something Simlish girls, but it's like one of my least favorite blinds because you can't utilize it in any other size other than the default. And I feel like in The Sims, curtains are such an underrated object. Like, I feel if you pair a room with a good curtain, you can create a completely different style, and we just don't have enough curtains in my opinion. So if any of the EA gurus are listening in on this video, please give us some more curtains. So now we're into the main bedroom in this apartment. This is where the parents will be staying, and I included a desk space in this build as well as a nursery because I did take some inspiration from the original family and the fact that Jesminda is pregnant when you start this game. So maybe if you did actually want to play that family in this renovated version of the apartment, then you don't have to build a new room. You can download it as is and go, because there's already space for a baby bassinet, and there is also a bedroom in this build, which I'll be moving on very shortly, for a toddler. So I kept this nursery part of the room very neutral. I use a lot of white and greys, and I feel like this is just so classy nursery vibes, and I really enjoyed how it came together. I had to use the Gary giraffe object because, for those of you who don't know, giraffes are my favorite animals, and I actually have a somewhat smaller but still very similar version of that giraffe in my real life apartment. And so I feel like every time I'm creating children rooms or nurseries, I always want to put that lovely giraffe in. I do wish that my giraffe was that size, but I don't think my boyfriend would appreciate it very much. So I tried to clutter up this room as much as possible to try and give some kind of personality to the Sims that I imagine would be living here. I did sort of feel that a couple of successful Sims, maybe Sims in the politics or perhaps the business career, maybe journalists or authors, could live in this apartment. I did include the desk area with a laptop, so your Sims will be able to access that for any work needs. And now we are just working on this really cute toddler's bedroom, and I did my usual thing, cluttered the room with loads of toys and little debug decorational objects just to make it feel more realistic and very messy. Like, the toddler that sleeps in this bedroom is pretty bad at putting away their toys. I know when I was a child, I was notorious for having toys all over the place. The amount of times my dad like stubbed his foot on a piece of Lego, I couldn't even tell you. But this room is quite small, but I do feel like if you played in this house and your toddler aged up, you probably could rearrange the furniture in this room, deleted maybe one of the toy boxes, and put in a larger bed for your child Sim. Of course, if you do decide to download this build and put it in your game, you are more than welcome to change it up in any way that you see fit. You can even add another room if you could work out the spacing for everything. If you do decide to renovate this apartment and you upload it to Instagram, Twitter, or YouTube, please do make sure to tag me in your creation. I love seeing what you guys can do with my work. So that's it from me today, guys. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Please do remember to give it a big thumbs up if you did. Subscribe to the channel if you're new here, and I will see you all next time. Bye!